I have the honor to invite His Excellency Mr. Sergey Lavrov, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, to deliver his briefing.
The only problem in international relations is the situation around Ukraine. I tend to disagree with such an assertion, and during my visit here and in my previous encounters with my foreign colleagues, I sense broad understanding that the issue is much, much more complex and complicated. What we witness now, especially as the West launches unprecedented campaign of sanctions, accusations, threats vis-à-vis Russia and anybody who dares to support Russia or even not to condemn Russia, this campaign indicates that we are living through a very important historical period, a period where we will all be deciding what kind of universe we are going to have and to live for our children and grandchildren. The universe which is based on the United Nations Charter, which says that the United Nations is founded on the principle of sovereign equality of states, or we will have the world where the right of force, the right of the strongest dominates. Actually, what is it all about can be described on the following example. Is it our choice to have the world where we have so-called collective West, totally united under the United States, totally subordinated to the United States, and feeling free, feeling that it has the right to decide when and how to promote its own interests, without following international law, without any respect to the sovereign equality of states. When our American colleagues felt in the past that there is a threat to their interests 10,000 kilometers from the American coast, be it Yugoslavia in 1999, be it Iraq in 2003, be it Libya in 2011, and many other occasions, they, without any hesitation, without any explaining anything to anybody, very often on false pretext, just started military operations, leveling cities, killing hundreds of thousands of civilians, like it happened in Iraq, where the city of Mosul was literally leveled. The same happened to Raqqa city in Syria, where dozens and hundreds of corpses have been lying for weeks unattended. And back to the United Nations Charter. I believe when we speak about more just, more democratic world order, we don't need to invent anything. Once again, I quoted the charter which says that the United Nations is based on the principle of sovereign equality of states. And to recognize that each state is an independent, each state has the right to determine how it wants to live, what kind of economic, social, political system it wants to choose on the basis of the will of its people. And I have no slightest doubt that any normal state wants to be like this. Nobody wants to have enemies. This is also an absolute truth. Neither Russia nor any other country present in this hall, I have no doubt. But if countries like we witness now, the behavior of the West, if they do want to have enemies, as they publicly declared in their doctrines, in the decisions of the latest NATO summit in Madrid, they do want enemies, they appoint enemies, they appoint the order in which they handle these enemies. Now Russia is the first. China is earmarked as the existential challenge for a long term. And all this manifests in renewed thinking about how the world economy and world system operates. The majority of the world countries do not want to leave, to move, saying that, and this is basically evident from the fact that except 2 or 3, and I mentioned China as the next target. It's a very interesting example of how the Americans consider fair competition in practice. Actually, China developed in the number one world economy. Everybody recognizes this. And China did so. China achieved those results, working and acting on the basis of the rules established by the West. IMF, World Bank, World Trade Organizations, the rules to settle disputes, competition, and the stuff. China accepted these rules in developing its own economy, and China defeated economically and trade-wise, investment-wise, defeated the West on its own turf, on the basis of the rules invented by the West. And what happened next? Already a couple of years ago, the Secretary of Treasury of the United States, some other officials started saying, we need to reform the Bretton Woods institutions, we need to reform WTO, and we need to organize this reform between US and Europe, not to allow anybody else to participate in developing new rules. Guys, this is absolutely obvious how they want this world to be operated.